Hey everyone, it's Libby from Meister Tarot. I'd like to acknowledge the Worimi First Nations people, that's WORIMI, the traditional custodians of the land on which these videos are made, and welcome to you, your guides, my guides, and the universal energies. Okay, what I want to have a look at. So announcement came out yesterday that the EU is discussing. They haven't got any details yet. They are simply discussing giving Ukraine the equivalent of 700 billion euros to continue defending themselves. However, none of the details is out as to what strings are attached, as to what that money has to be spent on or can be spent on, and what form that financing will take. So, for example, is part of it that 700 billion euros is the cost of sending, say, troops from the UK in as peacekeepers or something along those lines. We don't know. However, what is currently happening? Oh my goodness. Okay. First of all, the plane that landed in Moscow the other day that I did a reading on, and I said there's something there that's actually compromising to Felon 45 that got delivered to keep him in line for the Kremlin. And a few of you said, hang on, why would Felon 45 send this plane? He didn't, is my vibe. What I'm getting is he didn't send this plane. And I was thinking, well, was it Felon Rattus Pretorius, Leon Muskrat? No. And I was trying to work out who it was, and I have no idea why I landed on Stephen Miller. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there that what I was getting this morning when I was chatting to my guides, very the yeah, it had that. It wasn't Hegseth, wasn't who's the Department of Defence head. I just, for whatever reason, I got Stephen Miller. So I'm just going to let that lie, let that sit there. Okay. Well, I very want to quickly touch on. Oh, apparently there's there's a Chinese warship and a supply vessel and another Chinese Navy vessel 150 nautical miles off the New South Wales coast. They are in international waters. They are being monitored by the Australian Border Force. Um, and Coast Guard, etc. Just keeping an eye on them. They're not causing any offence at the moment. But we have an election coming up, and my feels is this is part of that sort of taunting, fear mongering that is part of this conservative world that we live in at the moment. Now, I did post on my posts section, so if you go to Meister Tarot under any video, click on the Meister Tarot, it'll take you to the main page. There's a section called Posts, and under that was an article about the fourth turning. Cash Peters awoke me to that yesterday when I watched his video, and I read it and I went, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely makes sense. So we'll have a talk about that in a different video. But I do want to ask about the EU aid to Ukraine. And as I split the deck, I think it's going to go ahead. But the format of it, we're not actually sure as of yet. So you've got, talk about a war of words. So you've got 45 claiming that Ukraine started the war. Well, considering it was Russia that invaded Crimea back in 2014, and Europe and the US both went, oh, tap, 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 naughty boys, but we'll let you have it if you behave yourself. Oh, could have been over then. And then what happened is that in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine proper. So, no, wasn't Ukraine. I'm sorry, wasn't Ukraine at all. But that's what claims 45 is claiming. Zelensky has said, Felon 45, I'll just call him that, is living in a Russian-made disinformation space. Oh boy, that might have hit a nerve because 45 came back and said Zelensky's a dictator without any elections, only a modestly successful comedian who played Biden like a fiddle. Well, most actually really good comedians I know, and he is a very, very smart, quick comedian. Most comedians I know are incredibly intelligent. But aside from that, no, not a dictator. Yes, they haven't had an election because they're in a war. How do you get people to vote when there is a war going on their territory? Just but speaking of dictators, because we do know how Felon 45 likes to project, he signed an executive order overnight saying that only he and the Attorney General can interpret the law carried out by the executive branches relating to the United States. So, and then on his Untruth Social this morning, he declared himself the king. Okay, speaking of dictatorships. So we've got this back and forth happening between 45 and Zelensky. The Kremlin have come out and have made comments, and basically what's happening with the Kremlin comments, very obviously trying to drive a wedge between the EU and the US and Felon 45, trying to provoke some sort of reaction from either side. Uh, Other lies that were spurted out, and yeah, delusional, the abuse of power and the delusional. The other lies that were spurted out is that Zelensky only has a 4% popularity rating. Eh, No, I think you'd find it's probably up about the 80%. What if he might find himself with a 4% popularity rating because he's dropping like an absolute stone. Oh, what else have we got there? So what I want to have a look at, I'm just looking. Oh, now apparently the US Special Envoy to Ukraine that went to Saudi Arabia to negotiate on behalf of Ukraine, but they were from the US. Keith, did I write that right? Keith Kellogg, retired as a lieutenant general, but very firmly a Republican Trump sycophant. You just got to look at his X comments, his Twitter posts to know that he's an absolute kowtowed himself down to Felon 45. So, okay, where am I going with this? Now, another lie that Felon 45 said was that the US had given more aid to Ukraine than everywhere else combined. No, not by a long shot. The EU has given, I think, about double what the US has given. And even countries like Australia and New Zealand have sent what we can afford to send. Get back in your box. Oh, okay. Now, what I want to have a look at, I'm wanting to look at this first up. Just okay. Susan Lynn had mentioned. No, I'm not going to look at this. I'm just going to mention it. Susan Lynn had channeled a while back now, a week or so ago, that Felon 45 would promise relief checks or whatever they're called. He's now come out today. Yes, she picked it, come out today and promised up to 1,500. Well, that's a bit tough bickies if you got fired from your job and have a mortgage and a family and kids to support. But that's beside the point. But whether the checks ever eventuate, whether they're cashable is another option. But very much about it's an abusive relationship where the abuser hits you, blames you for them hitting you, and then buys you flowers or chocolates or whatever and says, I forgive you for making me hit you. It's just, oh my goodness. So, but what I want to have a look at first of all, I'm going to use the Gilded Tarot Royale. I keep getting this image of a silo explosion. Now, I know Russia had a silo explosion in September of last year. a missile silo where it could have had a nuclear weapon on it, but it didn't. I'm not feeling that that's the one that I'm getting this image of. Oh, by the way, yes, the postal service is going to be privatised, and I see it being spun off to one of Bezos's companies. So I've got a puppy dog here wanting a cuddle. I want to have a look at this silo explosion because I keep seeing it's like this big whoop and then back down again. Given that Felon 45 and his minions have read just about all the nuclear experts and then went, oh, whoops, but we don't know how to get in contact with these nuclear experts. There was a couple of hundred of them or something, the ones that were maintaining the nuclear warheads and the equipment that went with it. Please tell me, show me, is this silo explosion going to be in the US? Sorry that I took so long to get there. Well, I do see it's really going to put the whole world back on its heels, not physically from a blast, but a holy F moment. Well, is that a yes? Potentially? Messaging being brought forward with this eruption in the background? Gosh, another night, a harsh truth being revealed here. And we've got the Fool leaping off the cliff. He's not even on a cliff, he's just in this small illusional circle of faith. The Lovers, some sort of contract and agreement in this desperation of fading misogynistic energy. Restriction, restricted by the truth. And then a message of stability and security comes forward. Okay, 2 major arcana, but it's not a massive yes. So I'm feeling not the US, but there's going to be information come out about the situation. I keep feeling it's in Russia. I mean, this is a country that's taking ammunition to the front line on the backs of mules and donkeys because they're literally on their knees. So what I'm really getting is that the harsh truth is that wherever these nuclear or silos are, the silo is, it's operating on a wish and a prayer is what I'm getting from that. The fading misogyny are desperately trying to get some sort of agreement through, but they're restricted. And it's all about money. But I'm not, but then we've got the voter and we've got my Biden card, or is this Macron, or is this Schultz, or is this a combination of all of them, including Trudeau, bringing things to an end? Okay. Being the first card out, I still think this is going to happen. It's really going to bring everything into clarity. It's also going to show the foolishness of these partnerships and agreements, and the truth is going to restrict. Okay, I'm going to ask slightly differently on that question. Is this, I'll just put those in randomly, there's not many of them. Is this missile? It's part of the conflict. I really think, I don't think, so Zelensky's not going to, he's not going to hand everything over. in the slightest. Let's have a look. Okay, thank you. I'm getting, oh, that's my phone. Hang on for 2 secs. Oh, I'm going to have to bring you up because I can't see where my little smousey is. Sorry about that. I was waiting for a call back. I've got a chip on the windscreen of my car, so I need to get that repaired and booked in to be repaired. So that's now booked in for next week. So thank you, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so the question was, is this silo that I keep seeing that is going to be this catalyst moment going to be in Russia? Might just leave it at that, eh? And get on to the rest of the reading. Yeah, it is. Oh, and what did I just see there? I just saw the Sun card, and on the top was the the Nightmare card. Where did I? Oh, anyhow, doesn't matter. I just glimpsed the Sun card, and we know that what the Sun can represent. And this one was popping out sideways. Loss, disappointment, heartbreak, but it is going to be a catalyst. So I'm just going to put it out there. That is still in play. But what I wanted to have a look at in this particular reading is the EU going to back Ukraine? Now you'll notice it's not just the EU anymore. The meeting is now taking in all NATO members as well as all. So yesterday was the EU members. I believe today is the NATO members. Please show me. Please show me. Using the Gilded Tarot Royale, is the EU going to fully support EU/NATO, going to fully support and back Ukraine? Oh boy. So what's basically happened is the world has now split down different lines. Now when I'm saying NATO, I'm not meaning the US. There is big change coming. There's a change coming. Now, in all honesty, there was complacency on behalf of the EU and other NATO members that the US would do the heavy lifting. I don't disagree with that at all. There was complacency, there was laziness. They've now been woken out of their stupor. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look. So we've got a big change, a change in the way things are done. There's going to be some announcements coming forward. We've got here, well, I think it's just leadership, powerful leadership to do with security and protection. If I'm reading on US politics, it's my Leon Muskrat card because it's the Emerald Emperor, but I'm not getting that vibe off it. I'm thinking this is more about leadership stepping up in regards to protection, because pentacles are about health. They can be wealth, they can be security and stability, protection, opportunities. So yeah, I think what's happened is the leaders have been forced to take self-accountability for their security of the region. I'm talking about the EU leaders, security of the region. I'll just bring you up slightly so the angle's not quite so sharp there. But also the financing side of it as well. Okay, in the past, disappointment with what's on offer, not looking at what's on offer, or just taking for granted what was on offer, and then it's not there anymore. The offer is gone. So again, this is a realization of the dependency that there was on the US to do the heavy lifting. Now, again, another lie that Felon 45 said, if you're needing any pushback in regards to this, he came out claiming that the US provided 90% of the military equipment and armament in Ukraine. The real numbers are that Ukraine provided 30% itself, produced within Ukraine. The EU provided another 30% from the EU itself, equipment and military uh, uh, supplies, etc. And the other 30% was made up of not just the US, but again, places like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, non-EU actors. So no, another lie. Anyhow, but that's just the way he is. Okay, so the offer being removed. Right, the Three of Cups. I like this crowning this reading here. It is about circling to support, coming together to support. And by doing so, they are casting a bright light on the snake in the path, and we know who that is. The snake that has tried to force Ukraine into isolation, because the hermit can mean isolation, introspection, investigation. But what's happening is that the snake tried to force Ukraine into isolation, but what's happening is it's shining a really big light. Okay, the higher ground and defending against this disinformation that's coming out. Externally, internally, secrets are being brought to the surface, lies are being brought to the surface, the lunacy is being brought to the surface and fully exposed. Absolutely. I highly recommend Cash Peters' video from yesterday if you haven't seen it. Something fresh coming unexpectedly, offered out of left field. We've got conflict here, could be conflict within the EU, within NATO, or it could be just the pushback continuing. The Nine of Wands. Negotiations, meetings. Now, I believe Keir Starmer and Zelensky, no, who was the other one that has been invited to? Oh, Macron. Starmer and Macron have been invited to the White House to negotiate. I don't quite know why Ukraine's not being invited to any of these negotiations, but anyhow, we've got the fighting happening here, but some sort of surrender with these boundaries. And then we've got stability riding in. Stability, or is it mercenary actions? Because the next card is the Nine of Pentacles, which is about those that profit from conflict. The Devil, those that profit from the conflict continuing, trying to keep it going. The oligarchs, it's also the end of a cycle. The hidden agenda of the oligarchs that are trying to keep this going. Something being, okay, I'm getting that this is attempting to force a surrender here. We don't know the fine print here. War is hideously expensive. However, there are huge profits to be made by those that benefit from conflict. Huge profits. The Department of Defense has failed its last 7 audits, but we never get to see why it failed. The Eight of Cups. Speaking of which, Space Force is very rapidly becoming SpaceX. Space Force set up during the last Felon 45 administration. Some big contracts going to SpaceX. Wonder who's behind SpaceX. Mutter, mutter, mutter. But the Eight of Cups, okay. And the high, walking away, losses and walking away, and a higher authority, negotiator, bringing this to an end. We've got the Emperor, the Dictator. So you've got these two different leaderships here, but it's something there is coming to an end. On the base, we've got the contract and agreement between the misogynists. We know who those are, but we've got strength of temperance here. Something new being brought forward, perhaps the funding, and we've got the heartbreak, loss, and treason card. So it's almost like I've got both sides of the agenda here. That you've got these dictators trying to hang on, but they're losing to this new energy that's coming out, the strength of the new energy that's just tired of war and wants peace. You've got here a huge new beginning, a new opportunity that is going to lead to the heartbreak and loss and disappointment. It's also my treason card for those that were profiting. Okay. So I want to have a look very quickly. Don't know the details of this 700 billion euro discussion, and it's still in discussion. There's nothing signed, there's nothing guaranteed. Show me. Is there a detailed, oops, door slamming, sorry about that. Is there a detail that we need to know about? Is there a detail? I think I still get it. I still get that Ukraine are going to have to cede some ground to make this happen, and to bring to surrender some ground. Actions having consequences, but also the justice card, the freedom, the liberty, the justice. Okay. Yeah, it's all going to shine a big bright light on all that is wrong. All that has been wrong for a long time. It was never dealt with. Let's have a look. 2014, that would have been Obama's, that's Obama's second term. Yeah, that one's on the bottom again. Obama's second term, where he didn't have control of Congress. So therefore he couldn't. Now, before we go off at Obama, it's the same with Biden. Biden didn't have control of Congress for his last 2 years. So anything that happened after 2022, Biden didn't have control over, because any funding, any action had to go through the GOP House. And the invasion was in 2022. So just don't forget that. But anything that happened during that second half, and that's, I suspect that's why Putin invaded in 2022, because he knew that Biden and the Democrats wouldn't be able to take any action. And that's the same with Obama in 2014. But what is happening is this attempt to isolate Ukraine by these devious means is being fully exposed. But is there going to be some asking of compromise on Ukraine? Yeah, big yes. The biggest yes card in the deck. Yes, to bring it to a close, to bring the conflict to a close. Yes, 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 yes. Part of the agreement of the funding of the new beginning. Yes, again, the manifestation, creating something, partnerships agreement externally, internally, the loss and devastation, the feeling like they've been left out of the negotiations, shunned, left out in the cold. The conflict may be over, but it's not over. I'm just going to say it's not going to be over. Hopes and fears. The fear is it's just going to be a band-aid delusion. The hope is the right choice is made, but the fear is it's just going to be an illusion, smoke and mirrors of peace. The outcome, secrets brought to the surface and revealed, a lot of information coming out very quickly, and the new plan being put into place. It's also lunacy, my lunacy card. I'm just going to say yes. We've got here the Four of Swords, being forced to lay down arms, Russia ending, negotiation, a very painful or uncomfortable victory. Putin's going to spout it as a victory. It's a false victory. However, I am going to repeat again that I do get over and over and over again that when the Putin figure, the Felon 45 figure, the Netanyahu figure, all these, because they're old, are gone, Crimea will become, I feel that Crimea, not so much return to Ukraine, it will become its own sovereign country. I believe that there will be an interim government in Russia, and then there will be their form of election, not the Putin form of election. Russia will not be a democracy in the way that Australia and Canada is a democracy. They will have their own people speaking up, ruling by representation rather than rule. Well, government by representation rather than rule. So it will happen. I strongly believe, and I do actually strongly believe that in around 30 years' time, Siberia is also going to become its own independent sovereign country. So we just got to get through this bit in the middle. So I'll see you shortly. We will do a big deep dive. I do apologise that these videos are getting really long. It's just so much to get out there. Big deep dive on the fourth turning, which I have actually been seeking for a while because I keep putting off particular reading on that we have economies that rely on infinite growth in what is a finite Earth community. So this is part of that. We'll have a look in a minute. Catch you shortly. Love you. Bye bye.